Hi. Hey, everybody. What's going on? Your friend Bobby here. Change of plan. It's just going to be me tonight, just talking to you guys about nothing until the rest of what's going on. Hey, hey, hey.
Where are you at, Clay and Glenn? Come on.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Clay,
Hey.
Glenn.
Thank you for having me here, Bobby.
Oh, my goodness.
Chat. Clay.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming. So as you'll see, Glenn's first time on the panel, guys. So, shout out where you're coming from around the world. Let them know. Represent for your city. Represent for your country. Represent for your town. What time is it over there? Got London, Florida.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah. Bay Area, Panama. Awesome.
That's going
Awesome.
crazy.
Wow,
Yeah.
this is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have 280 people watching right now.
Yeah, and literally from around the world. So this is like a worldwide thing, and which makes it awesome for us. I'm just kind of like this worldwide community. So Mexico.
2 a.m. in Paris. 2 a.m. in Paris. You know, Glenn can speak French.
That's true. That's true.
Oui, c'est le moment pour le sommet, pas pour l'animation, mais qui sait, quelque chose va arriver ce soir. Okay.
I'm melting. It's like Gomez in
Adam's
okay,
Family.
Yeah, that's awesome. Listen, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. If I mute when Glenn talks, it's because we have a feedback thing, but that's all good. It's okay. But thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you guys have all had a great week. I hope you have. We are honored today, obviously, to be hosting Glen Keane and Kaytis. Thank you guys for being here. Clap, clap.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and so a few years back, Glenn was a guest on Clay's animation podcast. What year was that, Clay? Do you have that on your?
2006.
2006.
15 years ago.
Oh my God!
The same, except a little gray on the beard.
Yeah.
Less hair. I didn't have that either.
I think on that photo, you did have a beard, like on the animation podcast, photo. Not that I remember it. Or
yeah, that was during Rapunzel Productions.
The beard phase.
Yeah. My wife made me.
If you haven't checked that out yet, Clay has graciously archived all of the episodes on the animationpodcast.com. Check that out if you have not yet. It's totally amazing, inspiring, where he takes deep dive conversations with animation industry luminaries, not just at Disney, and but he even interviewed the Ghost of Milk Call.
This is true.
Right? That's a joke that is timeless. But they are, I mean, honestly, they are super inspiring. And when I was listening to them, I felt like they brought me closer to the animation industry, which is one of our goals here at Rise Up Animation, which is we want to provide you with access to resources to help you break into the industry and accomplish your goals, and we're here with you. We all were there before, and let's take that journey together. So, and speaking on mentorship, in addition to being accomplished artists, Clay and Glenn, you guys have had a major impact on our industry, but you both have taken it upon yourselves to mentor young talent and pass on everything that you learned, from the mentors that came before you. And which is amazing, which is exactly, the thing that we want to keep going in this industry, right? Whether it's taking new talent under your wing or starting a podcast to inspire others crunching on Animation Mentor in Seattle, Washington. You both have done so much for us, all of us here. So thank you so much. Not only for the contributions that you've made to our industry, but also the mindset of paying it forward. And so we couldn't be more thankful for that. And so without further ado, I'll get started with the introductions. So Glen Keane, I don't know if you heard of him before yet, is a is a 38-year veteran of Walt Disney Feature Animation, training under Walt Disney's 9 old men. Beautiful. Glen created many classic characters such as the Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Tarzan, sidebar, Tarzan, that's the character that inspired me to get in animation in the first place. So thank you, Glen. And Rapunzel, of course. In 2012, he departed Disney, founding Glen Keane Productions as a way to further his exploration on animation, design, and film. And I feel like an artistic journey. I've heard you talk about that before, which is beautiful. He has since collaborated with partners such as Google Spotlight Stories, and Paris Ballet, and Glen's collaboration with John Williams and the late Kobe Bryant on Dear Basketball received the 2018 Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. In 2020, Glen's feature directorial debut, Over the Moon, in partnership with Netflix and Pearl Studios, was released and later nominated for an Academy Award. I did see you on camera, Glen. I was like, that's Glen on camera. It's on the train station. Yeah. I remember that. So welcome, Glen. It's good to have you here, man.
Thank you so much.
So our wonderful guest host today, Kaytis, is a director, screenwriter, and animator. He started at Disney Animation as an intern on their hand-drawn films. Do you remember him, Glen, when he started?
I do. Yeah. Clay is always at the place where something new is.
That's true.
If you want to see where things are going, just follow Clay. Yeah, pretty cool.
After he started, 19 years after he started, Clay was later the head of Disney's CG animation department, worked with Glen on Tangled, and made that whole miraculous, game-changing CG animation happen. So, amazing. And later, Clay left Disney to direct his first film, the Angry Birds movie, and followed that up with his live-action directing debut, The Christmas Chronicles, for Netflix. And so you guys have so many, just kind of like Disney.
Yeah, totally.
And so Clay is currently directing 2 animated Peanut specials for Apple Plus. So good luck with that. I can't wait to see it. Welcome, Clay. Thank you for being
awesome. Here. Thanks, Bobby.
Yeah.
And thanks for having us on here. You guys do an amazing thing. And like I said, last time we were together, like I've been trying to find time to help you guys. And this is probably one of the best ways that I can think of doing it, is bringing in people, talking about animation, inspiring everyone that's listening. So thank you. And thanks, Glen, for joining us. It's really cool.
A really quick disclaimer. If you want to come forward at the end for a Q&A to have questions for Glen or Clay, just do us a solid and make sure we have your approval to be recorded and have your image and voices shared on like YouTube later on down the line. But without further ado, I'll get out of the way and let this whole thing happen. I'll come out at the end to geek out more about with you guys. But it's a great conversation.
Thanks, Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks, Bobby. So welcome, Glen. I don't know, maybe I saw you maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago. It was before Over the Moon was done. But like Bobby said at the beginning, like you were on my podcast in 2006, back when I was podcasting, animationpodcast.com, if you want to find it. It's still there. And that's the music everyone was hearing at the start, in case you were confused. Like, what is this crazy music? It's made by Joe Mosier, character designer extraordinaire. And so, I think we didn't have that much time. We maybe talked for an hour, and it was a lot about art and creativity and what it means to be an artist, probably more than what it means to be an artist over being an animator, which is kind of all the same thing. But it's really interesting because your career and my career has changed a lot since then. We've both made movies now. We've left Disney. We're out in the wilds of Hollywood trying to survive. And so I'm really excited to just catch up on all this. I don't have a ton of like a big list of questions because I know there's a lot that you and I can talk about. So I just a casual conversation, and like they said, I think their description is perfect. This is a catch up.
That is really cool to catch up with you. Just I just want to say how much it's meant to me to be working with you. For me, it's I always look around me, and it's the people around you are the real gifts that you could never plan it. They just happened to be the right person at the right time. You were that for me on Tangled. As I watched you do the same thing for Bolt on that film. Yeah, you are a catalyst for change, for good things. It's
awesome. I knew you were going to embarrass me. I knew you would do this.
it's true.
Yeah, and I always feel like we can't talk about Tangled without also mentioning John Cars. The three of us were like, we called it the triumvirate, and we made that movie turn into some beautiful CG. So yeah.
It was an absolute joy. I felt like, wow, this is a film that I can't fail on because I have Clay and John on either side. They're going to carry me across the finish line.
No, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and one of the most I think it's the most proud I've been of a project I've worked on, honestly.
Yeah. It was a very unique thing. We really were trying to push animation. I don't think we were just trying to push to do something new.
Yeah.
You push to do something deeper, to connect, to touch people. I have a friend who said, Glenn, do you think you love people in your drawing when you animate? I said, no, I don't think so, because I find that I always get so obsessed with my work that I feel like I got to push it away to go home and spend time with the people I love.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I think you should really rethink that. I think we do touch people with the work that we do. And I thought about that a lot through Over the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't in movie theaters. We were in people's living rooms. And I kept comforting myself with that this was a film that was very personal, intimate, emotional, and we were in people's living rooms, touching them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's behind push for technology or push for anything. It's not just to do something new, it's to connect,
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is not just because you're the person on this camera in front of me, but like of all the animators, all the greats, like I think that if anyone asks like who connects the most with people, you're the person they're going to say. It's just a gift you have. And I know I don't believe in talent. I believe you've worked for it, but you also come with this, your personality is a thing that just connects with people. Like when you're talking, I can't help but have a huge smile on my face just because you exude this generosity and warmth and love for basically mankind, that it comes through your work, and I don't, you can't give that to people and you can't teach people that. It's just part of who you are. And
Clay, you've got that too. When
oh, stop.
when did you do your first lecture?
Oh boy, it's probably on Bolt,
So how old were you?
I'm not sure. That was 2000. What was it? 2008 something? No, it's got to be after that.
No,
I don't know.
2000.
At least 15, 17 years ago, maybe.
Yes, I think it was. You were a young man. You were a young man now. You were even younger then. And who gave you the right to stand up, do lectures, and tell other people what you believe or what you were discovering?
Right.
There's this spark. There's something you can't not share. You have. And I remember for me, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
I'd discover something and I just like, I'd stand up. Like I remember specifically the day that I discovered negative shapes in Milt Kahl's animation. And I started shading in the negative shapes and just watching the way negative shapes were working in Mowgli's legs. And it was like, I just got up and ran out. I think I found Chris Buck and dragged him in. Look at this, look at this. And I think that there's this joy of sharing what we discovered that really moves you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I was when you
absolutely. And I think, in animation, like Bobby was saying at the start, like it is a industry created from apprenticeship and learning and passing on knowledge. It wouldn't exist if you didn't share what you know, or if I didn't share what I've discovered. It would stagnate and not be the same thing it is. And it's one of those rare things. It is like a medieval trade where it is a industry of knowledge. And if you don't teach it, it'll wither, and it's dependent on doing that.
And I think I know that you know this, how insecure you are. You, not just you, me.
Oh, I am, yeah.
I mean, I always felt like the one thing we all have in common is if everybody knew how much we're faking it, we'd be booted out of here.
Yeah.
But I mean, you really believe that when you are starting. I mean, you don't just believe, you know that you know nothing, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I remember bringing in a sketchbook. I was 20 years old. I just started at Disney, and I was standing with Ollie, and I had my sketchbook from that weekend drawing people at the beach. And Ollie said, "Hey, Glenn, let me see what you got there." Well, it's just some sketches. Well, no, let me take a look. I was like, oh, okay. And I showed him, and he stops in this drawing and he starts to chuckle. And I'm thinking, he's chuckling because it's so bad. But he's like, I gotta show this to Frank. And so he gets up and he walks down the hallway, and there was this path in the linoleum floor between Frank and Ollie's office that they would walk back and forth so often. He ran in there and he said, "Frank, look at this. Look at this sketch that Glenn did." And I'm clueless as to what they're seeing. And Frank looks at, "I know somebody just like that, And they started talking about people, and they saw something that I didn't even know I was doing. But that kind of genuine enthusiasm for sharing it and learning, and you never want to let that go.
Right. And, I think that's something we learn as, I say performers, because that's what we do basically. Like when you heard them do that, and that, you remember this experience, 40 years later, that changed you. And you realized that meant something to someone else, and you probably in the back of your head were thinking, I need to do more of that, right? And it pushed you on this path to communicate more like that drawing.
Boy, it's true. Every portfolio I see, I'm kind of on a pedestal because people think I know what I'm talking about, but I know that I'm just barely staying ahead of the wolves. And then I look at their portfolio, and you can't help but just get excited because you see something that you wish you had that they've got. And you don't hide that. Instead, encourage somebody and let them know, hey, this is really cool. And they don't believe you. And you go, no, it really is. Believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to get excited about other people's art. I mean, people are amazing and they all do something different. And I was having this conversation with Monica last week talking about like all these amazing animators that have existed through the history, and none of them are the same. None of them do the same thing as the other. Milt to Frank to Ward, like it's all different. And you and James and Sergio and all these fantastic animators, like no one does the same thing. And it's such a weird thing to think that like the greats are all different, which is wonderful, because if they were all the same, it would be kind of weird and boring.
Yeah.
but I think the greats are out there waiting to be discovered, the new greats, you know, and they're out there, and I'm kind of blown away at the level of work that I see. Like I go through Instagram, I'm like, oh my gosh, these kids, like they are wolves coming after us, you know.
Well, Clay, can I tell you something that I've learned this year more than ever? I mean, I learned it certainly on Tangled, but I kind of took it for granted, maybe. And now I've embraced it as like the path for me to go on, and I call it reverse mentorship, where you surround yourself with people who are younger, but have something that you wish you had, and that you are going to learn from them, and you are going to teach whatever you can to them. But I mean, I learned from my production designer, Celine Desrumeaux, on Over the Moon, so much from Brittany Meyer's character designer, working with her. And it's the best way of working is surrounding yourself with talent, and not to have the ego that says, well, I have to be the one that knows. No, you just have to be the one that learns.
Yeah, and as a director, you have to just make a decision. But it's true. It's like I love that approach too, just allowing people to bring what they think is their best. And then you say, yes, that fits what we're doing, or no, can you do it more like this because this is what I need? And that's like the best job in the world, right? It's really magic. There's so much I want to talk to you about. And there's something else I kind of share. People always ask me, what's it like to work with Glen Keane? And eventually I share kind of like these 3 different little stories, and they're just little things I've learned from you. But I want to kind of mention them and just hear your take on what I'm talking about. One of them is there was a time that you and I were in the hallway having a conversation just like this, and we were talking about, I don't even know what it was, but it was kind of like deep animation concepts, you know, bigger ideas. And it was a great conversation. And then I remember maybe a month or 2 later, you did this big Disney town hall at the Equestrian Center, and you had to talk to the whole company. And you talked about things that we had talked about. And my realization wasn't that like, oh my gosh, Glen took our conversation and used it, but it was that you use those hallway conversations to formulate ideas and bounce ideas off people and build bigger concepts, and either kind of negate ideas or reinforce things that you might believe or things you might learn. And it's funny because with COVID, like we don't have that right now. We don't have these hallway conversations where you just run into people and talk. But it was just a cool lesson that I learned, that like, you know, these conversations mean something and they can grow into bigger ideas. And especially with you, it's like, wow, he's like formulating, collecting, and strengthening. And like you've always said, like steel sharpens steel, or iron sharpens iron, right? And
yeah, iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another.
Yeah, and do you have anything like to add to that? Just like that approach to bouncing off other artists and.
Yeah, I live with an expectation that something good is coming every day. Something good, something that I don't even know. I really, truly believe that the very best things in life are a gift, the things that you don't earn, but you receive. It doesn't mean that you don't work as hard as you possibly can. And I have put in everything I can into this art form for me. But the best things are things that I never expected. I didn't expect to run into you. I didn't walk down that hallway knowing Clay was going to be coming around the corner. But there's something, when you lean into life with the expectation, something good, you lean into a conversation, you can look into somebody's eyes and they can see there's like a spark, like this person is listening. If I had just been kind of like, oh gosh, there's Clay. Oh man, he wants to talk. Oh, I got to get this shot done. And I went around, nothing would have happened. And I'm sure I had a ton to do. But more important than that was not letting those surprise gifts go in a day.
Yeah, yeah. You are always you personally, I see you are always open to the possibility of what could be around the corner. It's really inspiring. And it, again, it, like, I know people, I'm watching this chat go by like, oh, I'm loving it. But it's like that thing that I talked about where you have this, this zest for life that's, it's really inspiring. And that's actually, this is connected to another thing that I learned about you. And when we worked together on Tangled, you know, you had been at Disney maybe, I'm guessing 36 years at that point total. And I tell people all the time that I watched you get better over the course of Tangled. When we worked together, you got better. I watched your drawings get better, your clarity get like, and you were already, you know, at this, you know, in everyone's eyes at this pinnacle. And the one thing I don't know what to explain to people is how you continually improve. You know, we've seen artists that fade over time. You know, there's plenty of examples of that. But like, do you intentionally, like you said, you surround yourself with these, you know, new artists that are going to push you, but like, how do you continually get better? And even now I see your stuff and I'm like, he hasn't slowed down.
No, I don't want to slow down, but well, when I was like 9 years old, my dad is a cartoonist, and he would take me to the art store with him. Anytime he had anything to do artistic, I was his shadow. We'd go out to the desert, and there was this guy, Don Barkley, who was a shack way out in the desert, and Dad would take me with him. And I'd step into Don Barkley's home, which was, he was a bachelor. It was just basically one room that was his oil painting studio. And he and Dad would sit and they'd have a beer and smoke cigars, and I'd sit at the bar and I'd have a root beer and I'd pretend my breadstick was a cigar. And oh gosh, I just dreamed of being like this guy, Don Barkley. By the way, Don Barkley was in Mary Poppins. The guy that fires the cannon, that is Don Barkley. He was a friend of Walt Disney's. And he also he was a vaudeville guy. He did some of the dancing for the dwarves. Anyway, I think Dad saw in me something, a hunger in drawing. And he said one day, I was really young, he said, Glenn, I'm a cartoonist. You're an artist. And it was like he was knighting me. It was the most wonderful thing. To be an artist, it's like somebody else has to call you that, you know, for it to be real. And that became a quest for me. And it will be for me for the rest of my life, this quest to grow as an artist. And I think that that's why I feel like if I'm getting better, it's because I genuinely feel like I have so much to learn. Everything I've animated so far is like, oh, please give it back. Let me do it again. I got a letter from Frederick Bach after he did Man Who Planted Trees. And somebody's doing some work.
It happens, yeah.
Sorry. I'd mute so you don't hear it, but then you wouldn't be able to hear me. So
no, it's worth it. It's not bad.
But Frederick Bach said after he did The Man Who Planted Trees, which to me is like everything that I want to be is like Frederick Bach.
Magnum opus, yeah.
Yeah. And he said, oh, he felt so terrible after it. And he said for years after, he would buy lottery tickets, hoping that he would make enough money to redo it and to fix all of those mistakes. And he said, but that was such a stupid idea because I would have made other mistakes. And, you know, anyway.
That's funny.
That thirst to always be better is in all of us.
Yeah. It's funny when I listened to our old podcast recently just to prepare for this, and you were saying in there that when you were young, because I said, have you always been a great artist? He said, no, I used to do bad drawings all the time. And, you know, I believe you, but I kind of, you know, with a grain of salt. But
pull out a whole bunch right here and show you.
But, you know, now it's like you can almost, you know, see your drawings from a mile away. It's like everyone knows what a Glen Keane drawing is, and it's not because it's like, it's definitely not a cookie cutter. You just have a style and a sense and a shape and a you know, a force and all those things that you talk about so much. But I was just wondering, you know, it seems like a very far out idea, but like, what goes through your head before you're going to hit the pencil to the paper? Like what, because I don't know, maybe you can just jump in, because I'm like, is it this, is it that? But like, is it communication? Is it feel like, what is like the last thought before you're like, here I go?
Well, you watched this happen all the way through Tangled, me drawing over people's work, and then Over the Moon, I drew over every shot.
I could see it. It was beautiful.
Well, I had no idea what I was going to draw. I mean, as we sat in those rooms, and you've got the directors and all the animators, and you're looking at something up on the screen and you're thinking, what is it? You remember the Steve Martin in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, and he's in jail trying to remember the name, and it's like, that's exactly how I feel when I'm going to do something. It's like, I do something. What is it? And you'll never know until you actually get the pen to the paper. And as soon as it gets close, there's like this gravitational pull that your heart kicks in. And you start drawing something from the inside. As I've talked about, Eric Larson saying you have to see it before you can animate it, and
right.
You don't see it. I feel it. And we argued about that. And I said, no, it really is true. I do not see it. I discover it. And just like hallway conversations, I have a conversation with my drawing. I expect good things to happen. I really, truly expect something wonderful to come from that. And there's a bell inside of me that goes off when I feel like I'm getting it. And I will fight and fight and fight and I'll throw out 500 drawings. I feel, but I will not let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
knew that.
That makes sense, because, you know, like, you know, John Cars and I would watch you draw in dailies, and you struggle, you know, you think, and you're like, oh no, that's not it. And like you're saying, like this, what you're saying, we saw play out in real time. And we used to, you know, shoulder each other and say, oh, this is going to be a bad one, watch. And you would save it. You would kind of push through the bad and turn a, you know, like where you were, no, oh, this is, and you would find the path. And I think that's what we saw real time.
What a great thing it is when that little ray of sunshine breaks over the mountain peak, and it's like, yes. Yeah. And what's weird is I've had drawings that I've struggled and struggled and struggled. And maybe the 50th time I'm doing a drawing of, say, Ariel. I remember this happened. And it's like, I hate this drawing. I hate this drawing. Why? And now I know I don't even care about this drawing anymore. It's my grandson who loves to draw. He said, Bebop. He calls me Bebop. He was 6. He said, Bebop. And I heard him in the other room drawing. He said, oh, drawing. It's my favorite enemy. What did you say? Drawing is my favorite enemy. It's like, this is exactly what it is. It's your favorite. You're gonna fight. Anyway, I got to the point that I'm pretty much defeated, and then it's like I start drawing a wrist, and something happens. It's an angle of a wrist that just screamed life. And I remember standing over Ollie's shoulder, watching him draw over a shot of Penny. And the way he drew a tilt of a head and a cheek, suddenly my twisted, awful little drawing became like supple and beautiful and alive. And it was a tiny little spark. And then it just kind of goes all the way across the drawing. One little bit of truth in your drawing. If you can find that little bit of truth that you don't give up on it, but it may be the way you draw a thumb, a lip, a wrist, and whether it's in CG or hand drawn, it starts to just affect the rest of that arm, that shoulder, the tilt of the torso, the head, the smile, and it just, like suddenly then the angels are singing.
Now that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And the difference between you and me is you don't give up.
I really do expect something good. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's really awesome. I kind of covered the two things I learned, and the third thing is it's more of an anecdote, but it always makes me laugh and smile because, like, sometimes we'll work on projects, we'll get studio notes, and sometimes you have to do them. Sometimes you don't have a choice in the matter, and I went through that recently actually. And I told them the story of when we did Tangled and it came to the time to do marketing. Marketing kind of sends all these sketches they've done, ideas of how the poster is going to look and the teasers and all these things. And these things would land on your desk and they were honestly some of the worst drawings I've ever seen, worst concepts, worst ideas I've ever seen. And you were just like, well, let's get to work. and you would put a new piece of paper over and like 3 hours later, we came back and you had these masterpieces of, you turned gold out of straw, and I just always tell people, like, there's a way to answer these questions and do the notes that people are asking you to do in an elegant way. There's a better way to do it, and it may not be what they're asking for specifically, and that's kind of what you showed me, is like you can make magic even when you're not in control of the idea.
There's a moment where you realize that you have to face the note. You can keep putting it off. Working for Netflix for me on Over the Moon was interesting because they really did give me enormous freedom. And I kept getting this one note. And it was like, I don't need to do that. I know, I just didn't believe in it. And then finally, we were down to we had 5 minutes left before we had to send out this version, and that was going to be it, storyboard wise. And most of the film was animated. And Jenny Rim, our producer, is in there, and John Cars is sitting next to me. And I'm looking at this moment in the film, and suddenly I realized they're right. They're right. We've got 5 minutes, and I said, okay, we need to do this. And suddenly I'm sketching as fast as I can, look over, John Cars is drawing, and we turned and we both had the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Hadn't talked about it, but John's was this perfect bird's eye view diagram with cameras showing the angles of all the shots. Uh-huh. Mine was little scribbly rough sketches of the character moments in there. We cut it together, and that's the way it is in the movie. I think waiting for that right moment was really good. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes as a director you say no, and you're not saying no because you don't respect them. It's because you're not ready for it.
Right. I do think you have to believe in it to do it.
Yeah.
Do it well.
Yeah, you've got to believe in it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to make it worse. Yeah.
In terms of directing, well, actually, I want to go way back here. So I have a question about your career that I've always been curious about. You worked at Disney, I think, for 38 years total. But there's a moment in the middle, not in the middle, the first third, where you left. And I think you worked on a Chipmunk adventure. It was Black Cauldron times. Like, what do you mind talking about? Like, why you left Disney and went back?
Well, I never felt that I was really a Disney animator. I felt like I was learning and growing, but those words that you're an artist have always meant an enormous amount to me. And so I never felt like, okay, Disney is where I will be for the rest of my life. I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as, okay, it's got to be asking more from me than I even know how to give, and I need that for me as an artist. And there was, the Black Cauldron was going on. They actually didn't want my suggestions, and that was like, what? Okay, this is kind of weird. And it seemed like suddenly there was nothing there that was demanding something from me.
Mm-hmm.
It was busy work. And at home, I had our kids, my wife, and there was freelance work because I was making nothing at Disney at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Really nothing.
I've been there.
Yeah, and I wanted to put in a yard. I wanted grass, and I figured, I know Ron and John. Maybe they'll let me. And I knew that they were working on The Great Mouse Detective.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I just quit and I'll do freelance for Disney and I'll be home. Then I'll do freelance other things. I'll have enough money and we'll put in a yard. and there's excitement and thrill and living on the edge and driving down the freeway at 3:00 because I've got a meeting with somebody from Apple. You know?
Don't you wonder, what do all these people do at 3:00?
It's the coolest thing. Yeah. So I left and worked on Great Mouse Detective.
So your Great Mouse Detective was freelance technically?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then what happened? Oh, well, then I assumed that I would go on to the next picture at Disney, which was Oliver and Company. But at that time, once again, they didn't really want me on that movie. So I was thinking, well, what am I going to do? And Ross Bagdasarian from Chipmunk's Adventure called and said, would I come over? And I went, all right, well, so I'll do that. And I worked on that for a while. And then The Great Mouse Detective came out, and Charles Solomon wrote some wonderful review and said some wonderful things about me. And Jeffrey Katzenberg, who had become the head of the studio, was reading it. It's like, why isn't that guy here? Mm-hmm. And so he called the director and said, that guy needs to be on this film. And so I ended up coming back to the studio. But those were the greatest days. Linda and I would play tennis. I never, it seemed like I didn't work until after the kids were in bed, and then I'd work till 3 a.m. I don't have that strength.
Right. Yeah. To be young again.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then you left Disney after Tangled, after Paperman in 2012, I think. I think I left in 2013. And I don't know if you felt the same way I did, but one I felt okay with it because I felt like Tangled had done something I'd wanted to do in terms of making a classic Disney movie in CG. I felt like it hadn't been done. And once we did it, I was kind of like, if I left now, it would be okay, And it was hard to leave. It was hard to kind of leave all my friends and I had worked there, I think 19 years, which is basically half the time that you had worked there over your career. And it was difficult to leave. But the one really cool thing that I discovered is there's a world of animators outside of those walls, and artists and people that are completely inspiring, completely creative. And really everywhere I've gone, animators are all the same. I know you've known this for decades, but it was a really cool discovery because I had only worked at Disney my whole career. You want to maybe talk about just like what you've discovered since you left and who you've run into and like how different and how exciting it can be?
Yeah, well, it was such a scary thing, just like you're saying. I didn't, just like in a drawing, I can't see the picture in my head. Some people can, Milt Kahl could, I can't. And I still can't. But I do have that faith, I do have the hope, and I count that is even more important than seeing clearly. I mean, there's a description of faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You draw with faith. anyway, leaving was like that. I had no idea what was coming. Linda, who's my partner in courageous steps in life, including getting married to her, and she could see I was restless, and she said, "Well, Glenn, what would you do if you weren't at Disney? Where would you go?" I said, "I don't know. Google?" She said, "Google?
Sorry.
Don't do animation." I said, "I know, but isn't that what it's about? Taking what you know and going somewhere where they don't do it? I mean, I want that." Of course, that I left Disney, and I had no idea that could possibly happen. Immediately, it seemed to be about Paramount and them starting the studio, and that seemed like, no, this is wrong. I would wake up at 4 a.m. I'd walk down to the gate of Paramount and look there and just think, is this why I left to do this? It's like, this is not right. No. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. But, the clock is ticking, nobody's paying your bills, and you're wondering what's going to happen. Well, the next thing, Google calls.
Yeah.
Look, we have some technology here of animating. We want you to come up and animate a little film. I did Duet using new technology. It was really about how do you compress data is what they were going to get out of it. And pencil lines had, who knew, the most data crunching potential, or challenge, because of all the little tiny, like a star field of graphic dust that they had to track every drawing. There were no vectors to it that you could predict. So we went there and we did this film, and it was absolutely wonderful. And then there was a Benjamin Millepied, who was the head of the Paris Ballet, happened to be there. And so he invited me to come out to Garnier Opera and do some animation with a ballerina.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then, so then I'm thinking, okay, well, what's next? And then it was Kobe calling. And all of these things were like being invited into a world where they didn't do animation. And I started to realize that whatever it is that I do, I want to step into somebody's world and affect a change somehow through the art that I do. And our little company, Glen Keane Productions, with Jenny Rim and Max Keane and John Kars, and that little team is all about that.
Yeah.
And it really excites me. Sometimes you're a little bit scared. What are you going to do next? How it's all going to work out?
Yeah. Well, for us from the outside, it's really, it's kind of the pure Glen artistic expression period. Seeing your drawings completely on screen, even in Over the Moon, your rough animations in there, and it's on the scarf, and it's clearly on the characters and all their expressions, and it's really kind of cool to see kind of like pure Glen in final projects. It's really exciting. And I went back and watched all those things again, and it's like your shapes and the way you want to tell the story of how a baby gets up and walks, and all those little things that you clearly care about and have observed. And me knowing you, and you had, I've seen your grandkids grow up over these years. I know that's something you saw one day, and you're like, I'm going to steal that and put it in this thing.
Oh, I am the best thief. Constantly building my animation nests with all the lint and stuffing from the people I know, and it just goes into it all. Yeah.
So for us, it's a big reward, I think, to kind of see your expression in your art. Really, you do, and it's a very different approach to the work and the product, but it does remind me of a Frederick Bach sort of situation where this is you, and this is your voice, and these are the things you care about. So I love it. You mentioned Trash Truck, and you're doing voice work now.
Yeah. No, that's that's just because Max knew that I love to do sound effects all the time, and so he asked me to do the voice of Trash Truck, which is really, really cool. Yeah, Max used, just like my dad used his family, Max is using his family to, and all the characters of Trash Truck. Yeah, we're very proud of that show.
That's very cool. And do you, because it's family, do you guys get to ever record together, or do you kind of do the traditional, like separate in the booth, do your lines and kind of don't see the other people, or do you get to interact in the booth?
Sometimes Henry is there, my grandson, who is Hank in Trash Truck. No, but Max keeps us separate. I mean, Max, my son, is a slave driver as a director. And what's been funny is how, I was designing the characters, but really I kept telling Max, I said, Max, you designed the characters, they're there. He says, no, but you do it, because you've got a way of drawing it. It's good for animation. And I said, yeah, but there's something that you've got that's really fresh. And I've got this Disney thing, and it's not in your drawings, and it's really pure and wonderful. And man, that was the hardest thing, is trying to draw like Max.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd stand over my shoulder and I think, what do you think? No, that's good. It's like, what is it? No, it's good. No, it's not good. I can hear it in your voice. What is it? Well, I would, he'd do some little drawings like, oh yeah, that's what it is. So it's been really cool just learning from him, trying not to change his style, but make the style work in 3 dimension.
That's funny. There's probably a handful of people that would feel comfortable saying that to you. So I'm good for Max.
Well, if they work with me for a while, they don't, they know that that's what I expect. Somebody that's going to,
yeah, you need that. I was curious, having, directed all these things now, and your role as a director is different than a lot of directors, because you still do a lot of the work. You animated, Kobe's basketball, Dear Basketball, you animated the duet. So you're doing the work and you're directing at the same time. But like on Over the Moon, I was curious, did you find that the part of your brain that is required to be an animator is very different than the brain required to be a director?
Yeah, I thought that, but it turns out that I've only got one brain and one part of it, that it all engages. And I approach directing exactly the same way as animation. The shots were bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, like 90-minute shot. I mean, it was built in that way. I did learn. I learned so much about expectation. Again, I guess that's the theme for me right now. We're talking with you. That when I would animate, and I remember doing a talk at Cal Arts about an old man standing up, and the expectation, as soon as you see him leaning forward, you know what he's going to do. So now that the audience knows what you're going to do, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Hold it back as long as you can, and have the guy struggle and push, and don't let those muscles push that guy up until it's ready and he's got to defeat gravity, and all these things are going on, and it's fun. That's the fun of an audience with expectation is power in the hands of a storyteller, with a director or an animator. So like, when Fei builds her rocket, and we had planned for that rocket, when she sings "Rocket to the Moon," boom, and she hits the start, it's gonna go. I realized you cannot have it go. You have to have it not go. Matter of fact, make it go backwards. Make it go barely so slow that a snail is going faster than it, and because there's great power, and then it's a delight. The audience enjoys the fact that you surprise them in some way. But I see the same animation is happening in that.
Yeah, I do agree. There's a lot more, it's a bigger picture, and it's a lot more pressure. And I find that, I've learned more about myself I think it's just natural as a storyteller from directing. And I tell people all the time, like, I've discovered that my sensibility is don't let the audience know what's around the corner. I like to surprise. Like, this is the thing I keep going to. Like, that's my version of telling a story, is like, no, you don't get to know yet, you know? And so some people are like, well, don't you want to? I'm like, no, I don't want them to know, you know? So it's just funny how I'm discovering this as I go. Like, I wouldn't have known that 10 years ago, you know, that like, that's the way I like to tell a story, but it feels right for me. And that's a cool discovery. So I don't know, had I never directed, I don't know if I would have known that really, you know, in my heart. And it's just a cool thing that I'm like, yeah, I like that.
The wicked glee. Yeah, you're holding it back.
Yeah. I like making them suffer a little bit, you know. I see, I just want to make sure we're on schedule. I see some people are maybe popping up to ask some questions. I know we've been talking almost an hour. I just want to make sure that we're on track. Bobby, am I doing the right thing here?
You're doing great, Glenn, Clay. You guys are doing great. We just wanted to make sure that people can kind of pop on to like ask you questions, Glenn, and like sort of like, man.
I know. I mean, I could ask questions all day, but I know that there's going to be a lot of great questions from the audience here. So, you know, I feel like this is my moment to kind of back away and let you answer questions. But Glenn, this is not the end because we have this section coming. But this has been a pleasure. I love talking to you. I always do, always have, and hopefully we can do it again. It's funny. At the end of our last podcast, after the interview finished, I was like, I'm going to talk to Glenn once more. 15 years later, here we are.
Yeah, and we will do it for a month more. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
So Bobby's going to bring people on, and while he's looking for the next person, you know, I'm going to help kind of facilitate that. So is Sandra our first question? Is that right?
Yes, Sandra, first question. Clay, thank you so much, man.
Oh, thank you guys.
Every time I do this, I feel like it's a little bit abrupt, and I'm so sorry for that. But
no, I'm the one that was like, oh, is there, you know,
no,
it's all good. This is all good. Zoom is our reality. It's okay.
So the next section, Glenn, however long you can go, just let us know. But we'll bring on like attendees from all around the world, and the first one would be Sandra. Hi, Sandra.
Hi.
When else would I ever get a chance to talk to Sandra? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's exactly. Okay.
Oh gosh, it's an honor to finally talk to you. I've been a big fan. I actually, Glenn, I saw your work in the 90s. I grew up with it. And so watching you just transition from just being, you know, a character animator to a director has been really amazing. I saw Duet when it came out, and I saw Dear Basketball, and now with Over the Moon. I'm just so curious, what have been your biggest takeaways going, you know, from just being a character animator to a full feature film director?
I've become so much more aware of how I need other people around me. That being the guy having all the answers is not my role. My role is to create an environment where people are invited in. My role is to point to where we're going clearly. And people are always going to be coming up with ideas that's like, nah, that'd be a fun film, but you go make that film. That's not this film. So it's clarifying that direction. And then having the fun of sitting down with that person and getting to know them as a collaborator. I really enjoy that, making something together with them. And when I watch Over the Moon, it's like I'm just watching like my high school yearbook go by. I'm just thinking of all of the people that I got to work with on all of these shots. It's far more important than making a movie, is the people, connecting with them. I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm probably not. I'm just telling you this is
Great.
how I work. Sandra, do you want to ask?
No, that's good to know. I think it's so easy to just fall, like into just one particular role in the industry. And so I've just wondered, like how it feels to all of a sudden be kind of like at the helm of an entire project. So
it's a great question. I find that I really needed quiet moments. Up on Netflix, we were on the 4th floor, and above us was the roof, and I could escape and run up there and just look out across Hollywood and just have a moment of quiet, because it's coming at you all the time and you have to fight for that quiet. I'm sure Clay has got that. I had a 2-mile walk in the morning from my house to Netflix down Sunset Boulevard every day. And people would say, you want to ride? No, I do not want to ride. I need this walk. And by the time I got there, I'd been thinking through different things that we were going to do. And that was really, really important. I felt like being prepared was at least being aware of the challenges. I didn't have to have the answers. I just had to know, oh, this is going to be the challenge of this next sequence. I think it's more important to have the questions than the answers as a director.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Sandra,
much
for coming on.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
So Zoe's next, right? She turned her camera off. There she is.
Sorry about that.
No, not at all. You're awesome.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Hi, Glenn. First of all, I just want to say, like, you're like one of the most inspirational people like in my life. Everything you say is just like amazing, and I know everyone feels that way, but yeah, it's incredible. So thank you for like talking to me. So I know you talked about feeling like insecure and kind of imposter syndrome-esque things. And I wanted to ask more so about pressure. Like, was there ever a moment in your career where you just felt like all this pressure because you started off just like doing amazing, and like, did you ever feel that at any point,
Yeah, it's a great question. I remember Max, my son, got into animation, and he struggled with, just living under a shadow of his dad. And Max has blazed his own trail, and to be actually learning from him in a way that's not fake learning, really, truly, he knows his dad doesn't know stuff. Yeah. That was wonderful. But what was your question again?
Sorry. I was wondering, if there was like a big moment where you felt that pressure start to build up, and like how you dealt with it, or if there wasn't a moment like that,
yeah.
if like how you avoided it.
The reason I was bringing up Max was because he said, "Dad, you've got it made." It's like, you've already done all of these things and people know you and there's success, and now you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
You have freedom because you've already proved yourself. I said, oh, Max. So naive in a way. I mean, I wish it was that way, but instead our ego takes on like, oh, now I've got to live up to, now what am I going to do? And there's this part of you that wants to outdo something, to prove you're even better than what you thought, that's real. Mm-hmm. And it's a very frustrating thing because you can't live your life like that.
Yeah.
That's not healthy. And ultimately, I realized that I have to be surrounded by people who I truly, truly believe are going to give me something that I don't have. Like on Over the Moon, I was trying to design the characters, and everything I did looked just like something I did for Disney. And I was like, oh, how can I not have this in my head? I don't know how I'm going to do this, but everybody's expecting, and I was confused, and I was feeling awkward and weird, and not liking this song in my head. It was like a sense of design is like a melody that it's like a song you can't get out of your head, and everything I was drawing, and I was frustrated. And then I went online and I was looking, and there was a drawing of Ariel.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's one of my drawings? No, it's not my drawing. Who did that drawing? Better than my drawing. What is it? It was Brittany Myers did this sketch, and it was in color, and she drew in colors and paint in a way that I'd not seen before, and her proportions and design were different, but it looked like my animation drawing. And I thought, she's drawing with forces. And I thought, oh, I want to draw like that. Yeah. I want that. And I told Jenny Rim, my producer, and she said, well, let's hire her. Oh, we can do that? So she called, and Brittany, who was I think 20 years old, came, and we designed together. So I would draw something, and then she would take it and make it better, and I would do something else, and it was really, really pretty wonderful. So all I can say is I am really aware of that, like, tendency to try to outdo yourself. And the best thing is to be surrounded by new young people that are giving you something so fresh you don't even know how they did it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Seek inspiration.
Cool. Thank you so much for the question, Zoe.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna go to Sarah next, right, Bobby? Sarah, you want to come on with your camera?
Yeah, sure. Oh, with the camera?
You don't have to. No, it's up to you. Sorry.
It's okay.
You can just be
Hi, Sarah.
Oh, hi, Glenn. Thank you so much for doing this. It means a lot to me, and I got like so giddy when you mentioned The Great Mouse Detective that I like immediately had to post my question for you. It's when you were animating Professor Ratigan, how did you get his complex mannerisms so believable? Because like he's like a top-heavy design, and yet you made him like so graceful and like with such poise until the second half, the final half of the film. And I was wondering how you like got into the mentality of that character.
Well, I mean, it was in the character, in the story, he thought that he was a mouse, but he was this huge rat. So he was really trying to be sophisticated. I mean, as if mice are sophisticated. But a big part of the inspiration on him was Vincent Price, who did the voice. And there was a movie called Champagne for Caesar. And Champagne for Caesar, he plays this character that is very sophisticated but is volatile at the same time. And he's very controlled, and you knew that he was going to explode at any moment. And so I recorded all of the dialogue of Vincent Price, and then I did drawings of Ratigan. And it was really Vincent Price's sophistication and air. He's an incredibly intelligent guy, Vincent Price, to meet him. He's an art collector, he's knowledgeable, he's worldly. These are all the things that Ratigan wanted people to think about him. Vincent Price actually had all of that. So you couldn't help but just put it into him the way a gesture would happen. For him to smoke this, well, Mark Davis always had a cigarette and a cigarette holder. And so he had this kind of air of worldly intelligence, Mark Davis did. And so I brought that into Ratigan. And Ratigan was this skinny little character at the beginning, a rat, and it just wasn't feeling right. And I had done all these drawings, and then one day Ron Miller, who was the head of Disney, came walking down the hallway to take a look at what we were doing, Ron and John, myself. And I had done, well, he was just coming down the hallway. And the way Ron would walk, you'd hear this, because he was about 6'7" and about 300 pounds, a big guy, all muscle. And he entered into the room. I see an expression on Monica's face. What are you wondering?
Sorry, I just saw someone pop up on the panel named Monica Lago Kaytis to ask you a question, but it's not me, so I don't know who it is. So that'll be interesting. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I'm just trying to manage on the sign. I am so sorry. I should have had my camera off. I'm leaving. Who interrupted Glen Keane? Monica's face.
No, it's fine. But anyway, so Ron Miller walked into the room, and he's huge. He was a linebacker for the Rams. He married Walt's daughter, and now he was the president of Disney and looking at storyboards. And his presence was huge. And I thought, okay, we've got to design Ratigan like him. And so, I mean, that became the design for Ratigan, was really Ron Miller, who was absolutely gracious, and he knew that he was the rat in the movie. Anyway, so those are some of my thoughts on Ratigan, but thank you for remembering Ratigan.
No, it's definitely one of my favorite films. And when you were at Annecy last year, because it was like recorded, it was actually my first time that I managed to attend that event. And I saw your Ratigan figurine, like the maquette in the background. It like reminded me of your recording in the, because in the VHS, it has like the special like behind the scenes for The Great Mouse Detective, and you're there and you were talking about like getting into the psychology of these characters, why Basil is like so antisocial, why Ratigan is like so full of himself like that. I always want to like ask you the question specifically of like how you got the mannerisms down. So thank you so much for this, Glen.
It was a lot of fun. You just make his feet real. I just remember making them smaller, smaller, smaller. Those big legs had to come down to this delicate little point. You know, his hands, everything. That was so much fun when you've got a purpose for your design.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much. Matthew's up next.
Hey Glenn. Hey Clay. I can't believe I'm meeting Glen Keane for the first time in my life.
This is pretty cool. This Zoom. Where are you?
Well, I'm somewhere in Nassau County right now, Seaford. I'm a New Yorker.
Okay.
But thing is, when my brother was little, he saw Tarzan, and right when I was around 9 or 10, I saw Aladdin and the Little Mermaid for the first time. But when I was 9, actually my first Disney film was Mulan, like some that the Bancroft brothers made, Tom and Tony.
Mm-hmm.
And after seeing Mulan, I said to myself, I wouldn't do this. So, during my years in school, I just went around drawing on paper, pencil, pen, learning what I need to know. Until about 6 years ago, I learned a lot more about you, like how you animated the main characters, like Ariel, Aladdin, Tarzan. But, well, the kind of character animation I'm into is like comedy. So, let's say I was to draw some comedic, like
Do you have any questions you'd like anything you'd like to know from Glenn? Any questions?
Yeah, actually, the question is, what would I need to do in order to become like a professional animator or like a director? What what schools would you recommend? What materials I need?
That's a big question.
I think that there's some, obviously look around you, what's close. If you're in New York, there's the School of Visual Arts. Pretty much most schools have an animation program there. And go visit, hang out. I mean, visit these schools, see what they're like. They're all like different planets. They all have different oxygen levels. You know, find a place that you connect with those kind of people, if you can afford that. If not, just go to the one that's closest to you and make the most of it. Good things are going to happen. You're gonna find your people. When I was 18, I had no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to do this. I didn't know that I wanted to be an animator. I just knew I wanted to be an artist. So I had a portfolio. My dad and I drove out to Cal Arts because I heard about a school that Disney created. It's a great school. You should try that one. And we got there, but the school was closed. It was Easter break. And we're driving around to school wondering, what are we going to do? Because we drove out from Arizona. And there's this kind of stoner guy walks across from the dorm, and my dad rolls down the window, and I'm thinking, Dad, what are you doing? He says, excuse me, young man. Yeah, man. Look, my son wants to go to school here, but it's closed. Yeah, man, it's closed. That's right, it's closed. Look, can you take his portfolio? And he took my portfolio and gave it to this guy. And he said, but drop it off at the art school, and yeah, if you do that for us, sure, man. And he walked away with all of my original drawings and paintings. I would never do that to my kids, but Dad did that. And because he trusted people, he wasn't very sophisticated in art. And we drove back home, and I waited a month, and I got a letter from Cal Arts saying, you were accepted into the School of Film Graphics. It's like, that idiot, he dropped it off at the wrong school. I don't want to do film graphics. I don't even know what it is. I called the school. I said, there's a mistake. I've been accepted into the wrong school. And the lady said, no, that's you. You are coming here as film graphics. And I said, what is film graphics? She said, well, I have no idea, but this is the only way you're going to come here. And all I can say, Matthew, is that these wonderful opportunities come your way and you lean into it. So I went to that film graphics, and it turned out that classroom, everybody was animating. And I discovered it was the ultimate art form. Everything that I wanted as an artist, this art form was going to demand. If it was like, if I was going to do Tarzan, go to Africa, be with the gorillas, study anatomy. It was as classical as an art form as Michelangelo could have ever dreamed of. And I didn't choose it. It chose me. It was just the right thing. So I guess I'm just saying, Matthew, don't worry too much about it. Go to the place that it seems like it's the open door for you.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And I don't know if you qualify, Matthew, if you've already been a mentee with us. I'm not sure, but if you do, you can sign up for Rise Up Animation, okay? So thank you for your question. And bye.
Thanks, Matthew.
Hi, Janisha's up.
Hi, Janisha. Nice to meet you.
It's very nice to meet you as well. This is really an honor. I definitely agree with, having, take what you can and learn as much as possible, because I'm a graphic design student, but I still study animation and storyboarding. So, it was amazing to hear about some of the other films that you've worked on, because a lot of those films my family and I grew up on. And one in particular was definitely Tarzan. We used to have like arguments over it all the time. over the songs, over different scenes, everything. And so my
Oh, you cut out.
uh-oh. Can you hear me a little bit better?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your question again, sorry, that's where it cut out.
Oh, that's all right. My question is, at one point you said in a interview or panel that you reference skaters skating in at the Notre Dame de Paris to get the movement of him skating along the vines, and I thought that was absolutely amazing because I'm a skater, so it's just like, whoa, I never realized that, and it's just like it clicks in my head because that's what I do, and so it's just amazing and mind-blowing to just like see like the mechanics behind it. And so my question is, when it comes to referencing figures in motion, what is your approach?
Yeah, it's really, really a great thing to learn to observe. I just remember being taught that again and again. Observation is the key to any art form. I mean, that you open yourself up and learn to see. See, the thing is, here's the problem. We learn formulas, and we think that we have learned to see because we've learned a formula, but you have not learned to see until you until you can let go of the formula and see actually what is there. And I remember at one point there was an artist, Freddie Moore, who really created the look of Disney and the style before Mickey Mouse was just very hard shaped circles. And Freddie Moore had a softness. He had a rhythm to it. There was an artist, Francois Boucher and Fragonard in France. And this guy, this young kid, he was like 19 years old and he had it. He created the look of Disney, no training, it just was there. And all of the characters had that. And so I started to learn to draw like him. And I could draw characters like Freddie Moore. And so I would go to figure drawing class and the model would be there. And everything I drew looked like Freddie Moore. And at a certain point, I remember looking at a drawing by, I think it was Degas. And I looked at his drawing and I thought, it's not like what I'm drawing at all. And then I started looking at the model. That model doesn't look at all like what I'm drawing. And I had learned a formula. And I became so frustrated that I could not draw that. And I learned to slow down and really look and notice the way the model's nose was and the way her shoulder was. And I slowed down and I started keeping a sketchbook, drawing, and really tried to focus and draw just what I saw. And it changed all of my animation, changed everything about the way I approached my work, because it also became about movement as well. Like in Duet, I wanted to animate a skip. And I thought I knew what a skip was. But if you've ever tried to animate a skip, it's really pretty miraculous thing. Who invented a skip? It had to be a kid. It's like, it's walking and hopping and jumping all in the same thing. So I just videotaped my granddaughter skipping, and Janisha, it is the most wonderful thing when you fall in love with what you are observing and you cannot wait to share it. It's the best joy for being an artist, a graphic designer. I have a book that this is sitting on. It's Charlie Harper. You familiar with Charlie Harper?
No, I'm not.
Then study Charlie Harper. Here's a man who studied nature and reflects it back to the world in a way you never imagined it before, but it's all through his observation. It's really pretty incredible.
Thank you, Janisha, for coming on and for your question.
Thank you.
And Glenn, people, we're getting gold right now. This is like
Gold.
gold. Are we okay, Glenn, with a couple more?
Yeah.
We're gonna let's do a hard stop at like 7 just to respect Glenn's time.
Okay, Janisha, we're gonna do camera off for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Manu,
Thank you, Janisha. Amazing. That was amazing.
so is it Manu?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Manu. It's like, to me, that's hand in Spanish. So I'm like, Manu. Okay.
Well, my actual full name is Manoja,
Manu?
but people just kept calling me Mano since I was a child. So I just go with Mano. It's just second nature to me now. So,
welcome.
Glenn, it's such an honor to just hear everything that you've been sharing all night. Well, it's night for me here. So I'm from Montreal, Canada. I guess, I want to give a bit of a context as to who I am. So my question kind of makes sense, I would say. I'm actually a nurse. I'm not even trained in animation or anything. I just had to choose a pathway very early on, and I picked the science pathway. I love the arts and sciences, but it was so hard to keep, both on track together. And then now, I would say for the last 3-4 years is when I started to go back into the arts, because if you're passionate about something, it's hard to lock that away and just keep that buried, right? So I always loved visual storytelling, and I always wanted to bring whatever stories I had to life. So I was very blessed to meet some amazing human beings who are animators and want to work with me to bring my stories to life and so on. And I've never really shared this, but what sparked in me to go back to the arts, or to go back to wanting to do storytelling, visual storytelling, was actually your collaboration with Kobe Bryant with your basketball, because I see this NBA player, and you, this legend that I grew up, watching all your films and all your work with. I'm like, how did that mesh happen? I love basketball. I'm a huge Kobe Bryant fan too. So I have like my fan, which I'm fanning you, and I'm my Kobe Bryant fangirl moment. And I'm like, oh my God, how did that sandwich happen? Right? So that was like that spark that started it all. So I'm like, okay, if Kobe could do it, I could do it. That's what made me just go out and reach out to people and tell my stories. And I was very blessed to find very genuine people who wanted to work with me, and they're still working with me on the side of their full-time jobs. So my question based on that is given your partnership with somebody who doesn't have that animation experience, who has not been in that industry, what made that partnership successful? Like, what would you say really helped, flourish the story and bring that magic that you brought to the screen? Because sometimes I find myself at a point where I have a hard time articulating my thoughts or my processes to, the people in the industry. So that's what I want to get your thoughts on that.
Wow, what a great question. That moment of meeting Kobe was remarkable. Something I never expected. And he did not know animation, though he loved animation, and he knew my work, and I knew his work, but I told you got the worst basketball player on earth animating you at one point. He said, well, that's good, because everything you learn about basketball will become through studying him, and it was. What was so wonderful about Kobe was he was not afraid of the fact that he did not know animation. He did not know that world of animation. He used what leverage he had. He cold called John Williams just because he wanted to know about composing and conducting and scoring, but he wanted to use it for basketball. He played a whole game to Beethoven's Fifth, won a championship by having it structured in his head what basketball was. And his greatest skill was not his athletic ability. It was his hunger to learn. I mean, that's what I really got from him. Like, this guy is taking everything in that he can. And just even listening to you talk about your choices with science and art, you are a sponge that's taking it all in. It's going to come out.
Thank
You're
you.
finding the right people. And when Kobe wrote Dear Basketball, he wrote it several different times, and you don't come up with something the first time. He wrote Dear Basketball first out of anger. Anger that he had to let go of the thing he loved. And he knew he couldn't do it forever. He knew he didn't have another season in him. And he wrote it kind of as like somebody who had abandoned him. And there was this frustration, and he got that out. And then he wrote it again. And finally, he wrote it in a way that was faithful and expressed it in a way that was really a message for other people. He first wrote it for himself, and then he wrote it as a way, I mean, it was about him, truly sincere, but it was to touch other people. And I remember when we recorded it, just down the street from our little studio was a recording studio that Michael Jackson recorded Thriller. You would never know. It's just kind of a nondescript little red brick building on Poinsettia in Santa Monica, in West Hollywood. And we went in there, and I said, okay, Kobe, let's just go ahead and read the narration, because this is what I'm going to animate to. And I expected a dramatic way of communicating all of his heart and soul into this. And he starts out very quiet. And his voice is a very quiet voice. And he just delivered it, just barely a bump. It was just very straightforward. I thought, okay, well, he'll get used to it here. Next time he delivered it, it was exactly the same. Third time, we did it 7 times, and they were all exactly the same. And I realized he's not performing. He is unveiling, he's revealing. And his first step into animation was about revealing who he was. And I say that to you because the reason why you should do what you are talking about doing is to reveal yourself, to open yourself up. And that's why we do what we do. And the world, everybody, every artist to in some way express themselves. So I would really encourage you, surround yourself with people that you are open to. You don't have to have all the answers, but there are certain people. Clay is like that for me.
Oh, stop, Glenn.
When I'm with him, I feel like I can't fail. I feel like there's just encouragement, and if I don't have the answer, he will, or maybe this other person, John Cars would. And you find those people around you. They're the right people. You'll know. It's kind of like, it's just like magnets, kind of.
Yeah, you just know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Manu, for coming on and asking your question. Because
Thank you,
in
guys.
this chat, people are like, great question. So hearing Glenn talk about Kobe, and I know that because of Glenn, Kobe actually called Clay once to come in, and we actually did get to meet with him about his company.
Yep.
And I have to say, I mean, I'll just do this little antidote because it was Glenn, and Glenn had verbalized something about Clay to Kobe. So Kobe reached out, Clay met with Kobe, and we were starting our own production company. And Clay came home and he was like, I don't know. I feel like I need to help run the studio with him. Like he was just so in love.
He was the real deal. He was so into making animation. Like that was his focus after basketball was animation.
And I'm like, Clayton, no, we have to run our own production company. It's Kobe. He'll be fine. Come on. And then he was like, I don't know. I think you need to meet him. And so we went in together, and I want to say sure as shit because that is exactly what happened. He hugged me. He spoke to me in Spanish, and I was like, I was almost falling. I was ready to give up our company as well and be like, all right, we'll come and work with you. I mean, he was amazing, and that was an amazing project. So, okay, sorry. So next.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I'll add one thing. He was like, yeah, I've listened to your podcast. I was like, what?
Yeah, he totally, and he actually had just rented out a theater himself, right, Clay, with his family to watch Angry Birds. I mean,
who could not love that guy? Come on.
I know. So Priscilla is next. She's not going to come on camera, but she's going to unmute and ask her question, right? Priscilla. Maybe.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, Priscilla.
Hi. Hello. Yeah. I'm recently a college graduate for animation, though I'm pursuing graphic and web design. Though I do have a question about that many people that start out, they kind of struggle with something that we call imposter syndrome, if you probably all heard about it.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, if you also had to deal with this, especially in the beginning, and how were you able to get past it?
Yeah, I really felt that because I stepped into animation. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I stepped into animation being behind the camera, I knew nothing. And so I felt like everybody deserved to be an animator, but not me. And it was really, really difficult. Everybody would get together at the lunch table. This is when I was 20 years old at Disney, and you would try to prove to everybody else that you belonged at that table, all these artists from other places, and you're intimidated, and it's all in your head. And it's not a good feeling. I didn't like feeling that way, but I couldn't turn that off. But I watched a friend of, he wasn't a friend of mine at that point, but a guy, Ron Husband, had been hired. He was a football player from Las Vegas, Nevada, a black guy, really strong. And I loved football. And I thought, oh, he'd be an interesting guy to talk to. But he did not join the table. Instead, he sat on a park bench and he was reading his Bible at Disney. And I'd never seen anybody do that either. And then they took that room of all of our trainees and they split us into twos. And I got put into a room with him. Ron Husband is his name. And at that same time in my life, I started to really go through, as you start to feel insecure, it also kind of bubbled over into just a spiritual search for me. And he explained a wonderful idea of being loved by God for me, which I'd never understood that. And my life turned around at that point. And I remember going into the studio feeling like I had something to give. And I would talk to people and I realized they're struggling too. And it was like suddenly being able to be out of my head and looking at other people as people in need. I mean, Bobby, you must have felt this, to be able to even put this together where you're doing something to encourage other artists around the world. That's a goodness. And Clay and I started off just talking about this need to share and to give. And that was that really turned it around for me to realize that everybody is feeling insecure, and that when you meet somebody, you can be a voice of encouragement, putting courage into them. And yeah, so that was a big changing point in my life.
Again, words of wisdom, everyone. Thank you so much, Priscilla, for coming on and asking your question.
Yeah. Sorry. That's one of the things, Glenn, really quickly, just kind of like, with a lot of our community and myself included, of just kind of like, imposter syndrome, of self-doubt, and I always tell people, like, it kind of never goes away. You know what I mean? Like, in every point of your life, I mean, it kind of, you think it would, but it kind of never goes away. And for people to hear, like people like you, Glenn, like Clay and Monica, and to hear that we go through that on your own perspective, I mean, that just kind of, there's a little bit of a kind of like, okay, everyone's kind of going through this, but
I was just going to say, it's totally, everybody goes through it. Some people will say the whole fake it till you make it. I just kind of look at it as, when I'm learning, I'll learn something, give myself that time. And once you really get it, you don't really feel like an imposter anymore. But then when you stretch again to learn something else, sometimes that comes back. So I kind of look at it as like, that's just part of being human.
Yeah. Right. Monica, I watched Monica at Disney, and it was always a delight watching somebody walk into a room with that expectation that something good was going to happen. You always do that. I mean,
Bobby, I'm so sorry. When Glenn talks and you're not muted, we can't hear him because it makes that noise. But I heard you say me walking into a room. Was I a whirlwind, or did I have something else?
No, it's your attitude. You would walk in with this expectation of something good. I mean, your entrance into the room brought light and energy, and it's just the way to be in a team. And
so sweet.
But it's, yeah.
So I just have to tell the audience this, because Clay's talked about, and he's an animator, you're an animator, and you're both directors, and but just for all of you out there who may not be an artist like me, I could do art. My mom's an artist and all that, but I chose to be a producer, and I was a PA, a little PA in my 20s, and I just started on Pocahontas, and I'll never forget that I had really long hair, and Glenn was like, because you were always studying your live action reference Pocahontas woman, but she wasn't always there on site, and I had the ability with my hair. It didn't. Do you remember? It didn't part. And there was a day I'll never forget. It was like, it is literally a shining moment. I talk about it all the time. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, Glen Keane said, Monica, come here for a second. I want to show. And he showed his team, like, look how her hair doesn't part. And I was like, oh. And then when we finished the movie, Glenn, and I think we were at, the wrap party, or did you go to New York for?
Yeah,
I think we were at New York, and I think we were at the Rockefeller Center. And I think I went up to you and I was like, thank you so much. You did such an amazing job. And you looked at me and you're like, no, thank you. And you hugged me and gave me a kiss. And I was like, that's it. I'm done. If I died tomorrow, Glen Keane appreciated me. And I just want to tell you that I could cry today because I love you that much. Okay.
It's pretty awesome hair. And Pocahontas would love to have your do now as well, I'm sure.
Right? I feel like that's part of the inspiration. Okay, so we have a few more minutes, and we have Wilmer on, right? He may end up being our last question, or do we have more, Bobby?
Yeah. So I was on mute. So like 5 minutes. So Nadine, if you want to come on, I really want you to get this off to Glenn.
Okay.
Hi, Nadine. Hello.
Hi, Nadine.
Hello. Oh my goodness, it's such an honor. First of all, I just want to say, like, you have been such an inspiration to me since like the day I discovered you. Like, I found your behind the scenes videos when I was 12 and just discovering how to draw. And just listening to you talk, it has helped me discover so much about how when you draw, it's not just a drawing, that there is a heart and soul inside of everything that you create. And I've just carried that with me in every single drawing that I've made since then. And I am planning on just going full steam ahead into the industry, like carrying that ideal with me. So I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you've given me.
Thank you.
And now my question.
I'm the same with you. Sorry, really quickly. Like when I found like Glen's stuff, and he was just kind of like, every drawing has to live and be sincere, like draw with sincerity. I'm 100%. Anyway, go ahead.
Thanks, Bob.
So my question is, how do you protect yourself physically from the pains of animation? Because I'm 20 and I'm already experiencing like a lot of back pain, and carpal tunnel is just coming after me at the end of every semester. And I got a summer full of chiropractor appointments. So it's just like, how do you keep yourself walking upright after years of doing this?
Oh, well, I walk. For one thing, I used to run. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to do something that I can do till I'm 100 years old, which is just walking at least an hour a day. And that's really helpful. I do every morning, like 30 leg lifts laying down. Just keeping strong stomach muscle is really important for just being able to support yourself. You're 20 years old. You've probably got great, strong stomach muscles. I don't know why you should be having that kind of pain as a young woman. I think it's really good that you are thinking of this now, because we want you healthy when you're my age at 67 to be still creating work. I really do think about longevity of being an artist, my health, that I don't want to not be able to realize the things that I'm imagining. So I would look into whatever the chair is that you're using. I don't know what.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. I mean, really look at your ergonomics. Honestly, I had the same thing. I used to get from, carpal tunnel and problems from playing video games and stuff. I know, doesn't seem like it'd be me. And the other thing is, do you take enough breaks, Nadine? Do you take enough breaks? Every hour you got to get up, walk around. You might just be so into it. And I know it's hard. We're all creative, but you got to put that first. I think that's great advice, Glen. And everybody in the chat's like, oh my God, that's a good question, because it's true.
You need to take care of yourself. I mean, I got, some thing on my wrist doing CG, and I had to stop animating for like 3 or 4 months. So that's what you could have if you don't stop and take care of yourself, take breaks, do stretches, just do, there's things you can find online that are really actually helpful. It's funny. It's a good question because everyone deals with it.
It's really good, Nadine, thank you for that question, because right now I'm starting a hand-drawn film, and I get passionate, and you might be like me. You might be like me where you are. I mean, I reflect in my body whatever it is that I'm animating. It could be the thing you're animating too, maybe stressing your body because you are living it. Like when I was doing The Beast, my neck was so sore, my jaw, I thought I had, what is it, TMJ or whatever the thing is you got, I was convinced that I had a medical problem, but it was because I was being the Beast all the time, all day long. I would hold a coffee cup too, and my cup would be doing this, and I'd be like, oh no, I've got Parkinson's. I just spilled coffee all over my pants. And it was because I was flipping, actually it was this hand. It was flipping like that. And I'd come home at night, my hand, I couldn't hold something because it was just doing that. It's about moderation, and you got a long career ahead. So it's a marathon race. It's not a sprint.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nadine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. That was amazing.
Great question.
I think Wilmer is still waiting, right, Bobby?
Wilmer, are you here? Let me.
Let's hear you. If not,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry about that. Ask to unmute. Ask to video. Wilmer, you there? Oh, hold on. That's our video. Ooh, I think he left.
I think he left. Oh, well, it is 7:01, and
Yeah.
that was what we said we were going to do.
Yes.
And we're so grateful to you, Glenn, for your time, for being here. I mean, you know, I'm sure you probably don't see yourself as the great Glen Keane, but you are to all of us.
But I really appreciate all the kind words, especially the chances to be with you guys. I could do this forever.
It's great to catch up with you, Glenn. Really great.
Yeah, we've missed you a lot. And Bobby is really one of your biggest fans. I mean, it's one of the things I teased him the most when I found out, because when we were starting working together on this, you know, on Rise Up, right? He'd be like, Glenn, and he'd talk about Tarzan. And I was just like, you're so, right? Are you leaving? Yeah. Do your salute. Do the. When I first said, Bobby,
I'll ask you one thing because I have to do it. Sorry, Clay. I was going to give the last question to you. So, Glenn, because Tarzan is the movie that made me pursue animation, what is the, tell me one memory that you had that stands out from working on Tarzan in Paris, if you could, if you don't mind.
Well, there's so many, but there's always a moment for me when the character becomes real.
Yeah.
You're struggling, you're working on the design and kind of there, and then you try to do a 3/4 drawing and disappears like smoke, and then you don't even know what he's really thinking. You're finding out by animating something, well, that's not him. Like Tarzan would draw some of the other animals draw him like a superhero. And he would stand there mostly naked with his loincloth, and he looked really embarrassed, like, clothes on. And as soon as you remembered, no, he thinks like an animal. There's this, you drop his head, and he would leave with his shoulder, and he started to become real. But I remember there's always this moment where when you're leaving work, for me it was at that time in Paris, and I carry my bike down.
Sorry, Bobby, will you mute?
Sorry, yes, sorry.
I know it sucks because Bobby can't be unmuted while Glenn's talking for some reason. Go ahead.
Bobby is immutable. So getting down to the landing, carrying my bike, and there's some stairs going down, or there's like maybe about a 4-foot jump onto the floor. And I thought, oh, I better use the stairs. And I swear, I just knew Tarzan was right next to me, and he just leaped and landed. And I realized, oh, he's with me. I know him. I felt like I could put my arm around him. And from that point on, I just like, he's with me. He's still with me today, though he's gone on. But each of the characters has become real like that for me.
We have to stop here. This is perfect.
That is perfect.
I had a heart attack. Amazing.
Great question, Bobby. Thank you so much for having me and just hanging out with you guys. I love you, Monica, Clay, Bobby, and everybody that shared. Those questions were really
good. Everybody.
Nadine's question at the end was perfect for me to hear, just to be reminded.
Yeah, and actually hear you talk about, and and hear about how you're walking, and I mean it's making me be like, yeah, I need to be doing that, so yeah. Thank you for everything. Thank you, Clay. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks all of you for watching. We love you.
All right.
Forever.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye bye.